So this video is going to be a little different than the walkthrough videos because you're supposed to know how to do aggregate, subqueries, and joins already. So rather than showing you the SQL syntax, I'm going to just sort of sketch out how to attack each problem. So the first question asks for the serial number of all fired always stoves that have been invoiced. So there's a couple of different ways to attack this, but basically what you want to do is find all of the fired always stoves and then look for the ones that also appear in these end line items, and you can either use the subquery or a join to do that. But basically so you're supposed to list the serial number and eliminate duplicates, so don't forget to order by. Start writing these as comments. So for question 2, show the name and email address of all customers who have ever brought a stove in for repair. So to find the customers who brought a stove in for repair, join customers with stove repairs, and that's the stove repair table. Then to find the customers with email addresses, join that to email. So there's an email table. And if you use inner joins for both of these joins, then you'll only get back customers who both had repairs and who have email addresses. So, what stoves have been sold to customers with the last name Smith? So there's the customers with the name Smith. And then to find the stoves that were sold to those customers, you need to go through invoice, invoice line item to stove. So then you're going to display the customer name, stove number, stove type, and stove version. So customer name is in the customers table, stove type, stove version, and stove number are all in the stove table. Show results in customer order name, so don't forget to order by. And that should be that one. What employee has sold the most stoves in the most popular state? So this one's complicated. First, find most popular state. So to do that, what you want to do is join customer with invoice, and then you want group by state province, and you want to count the number of rows that come back for each state province. Then order by state province in descending order. Take top one of those. So the top one is going to be the most popular state, the state with the most sales. Then when you have that, you're going to want to find how many sales each employee made in that state. So join employee and invoice and customer, where the state province is equal to the most popular state, and then group by the employee, and you're going to need the employee name and the employee number, so you're going to want to group by both of those things. And then you're also going to want to count the number of rows there, and that's going to be the number of sales that each employee made in the most popular state. Then to find the employee with the most sales in that state, order by that count, descending. And I'm sorry, this should be order by that count as well. So you want to count the number of sales and then order in descending order by that count. Same thing here. And when you have that count, just like before, you're going to take top one of those. So that's going to be the employee that made the most sales in the most popular state. So you're going to display employee number and employee name, name of the most popular state, which is going to be the state province, and the number of stoves sold by the employee in that state, which is going to be the count star. Identify all the sales associates who have ever sold the Fired Always version 1 stove. So first, find all the Fired Always version 1 stoves. So that's where type equals Fired Always and version equal 1 in the stove table. Then look in invoice line item to find end lines where FK stove number is equal to serial number. Then look in invoice where invoice number equal FK invoice number in those end lines. Then you have FK emp ID in the invoice table, and that will get you to the name. So now, after doing all that, you should have the name, stove color from the stove table, and to find the total number sold, you're going to want to group by. So here basically you want one row coming back for each combination of employee name and stove color. So you're going to group by those two things, and then to find the total number sold, you're going to do a count star to find how many rows are getting collapsed for each of the result rows. So question 6 asks for the name and phone number for all customers with a Hotmail address. So we start with going the customer table with the email table, and then find the ones where email address is like Hotmail. I think it's hotmail.com. You'll probably want to look at the results there. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look. Right. So to find the Hotmail addresses, that should be those. Great. So those are the customers with Hotmail addresses. And then join those with the phone table. And that should give you what you need. Don't forget to sort them by customer name. Show the PO number, average sales price, and average extended price for parts priced between $1 and $2, which were ordered from suppliers in Virginia. So the supplier table and part table purchase order table, PO line item table. Take a look at these. So you can get the purchase order number either from PO number or from FK PO number in the PO line item table. For average sales price, here's the sales price in the part table, and to find the average, that's going to be an aggregate for each part. So group by part number and average the sales price. To find the parts priced between $1 and $2, that's going to be cost between 1 and 2. And then to find the ones that were purchased from or ordered from suppliers in Virginia, where the state is equal to VA, select those. That will give you the supplier number. Supplier number will join with the purchase order to find PO numbers, and then FK PO number and PO line item will match that. And then FK part number here will match part number in the part column. So you can either use subqueries or you can join all four tables together, but basically you're going to restrict by the cost, then you're going to aggregate by the part number, you're going to restrict by state in the supplier table, and then you're going to average the sales price. So question 8 is a little tricky. Which invoice has the second lowest total price among invoices that do not include a sale of a fired always stove? So first you want to find the invoices that do not include a fired always stove. The first step to do that is find the invoices which do include a fired always stove. So find invoices which include fired always. And to do that, you're going to want to join stove with end line item, and then select the stoves where type is fired always. So that'll give you the invoice line items that have stoves that are fired always. And if you take the invoice numbers, FK invoice number from inv line item, that gives you a list of all the invoices that had fired always stoves. Then to find the invoices that aren't in that set, where the invoice number is not in previous set of FK invoice numbers. So that gives you all of the invoices that did not include fired always stoves. That's going to give you a sales price on the invoice. So let's look at the invoice for a second. So you'll see there's a total price column. If we order by total price, here they are in ascending order by total price. So this is the cheapest, and then this is the second cheapest. So to find the second cheapest stove here, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to find the most expensive one, which is basically going to be select top one invoice number from here. So here's the most expensive one. And then if we wanted to find the second most expensive one, where here's the most expensive one, and then order by total price. So here's the second most expensive invoice from all of the invoices. You're going to want only the invoices where there wasn't a fired always stove sold. What employees have sold the most stoves in the least popular color? So to find the least popular color, you're going to want to first join stove with inv line item, and then group by color, and count star to get the number of sales for each color. Then order by count star in ascending order, take the top one of those, so that'll get you the stove which has been sold the fewest number of times, which is the least popular color, and then so take the top one color there. So this will give you the color that's been sold the least number of times. Then when you have that color, you can use that whole thing in a subquery to find all the stoves that are that color. So and then join that with invoice to get to the employee ID. So that's where you might want to use a subquery. And then to find how many of those were sold by each employee, take the count star of that to get how many of those stoves were sold by each employee. And then order by count star in descending order, and then take the top one row there. So that's going to be the employee that sold the most stoves in the least popular color. To get all the employees, if they're tied, you're going to want to include top one with ties there. So employee name from the employee table, number is the count star, and the least popular color is going to be the color star, and you're going to have to include that in your group by as well. Last question, breakdown of all part entries in invoices. So for each invoice, show customer name, invoice number, number of invoice lines for parts, total number of parts for the invoice, and the total extended price for these parts. So basically this is just one big join here. You're going to join the part table, the in-line item table, invoice table, and then customer name is in the customer table. Invoice number you have from here. Number of invoice lines is going to be the count star. So you're going to want to group by each part. So group by each part. And then you want to count the number of rows to find out the number of invoice lines for each part. For the total number of parts for the invoice, you're going to want to sum the quantity field. So let's do count star for number of in-line item records for each part, and sum of quantity for total number of parts for the invoice. So actually I think you want to group by both part number and by invoice number here. Total extended price values for those parts is the sum of extended price and then format, order, and yeah, so format your output, order by customer name and invoice number. And that should be it. Good luck on the lab. Let me know if you have any questions. Either send me email or post them to the discussion board.